So I thought it would be fun to tackle another one of these Dollar Tree dollhouse dressers. So we're going to take this one from this to, and we turned it into this cute little mid-century style dresser. Stay tuned and see how easy this is to do. Alright, so we're tackling the shorter dresser today. And this one comes up to, let's see, comes up to about Mr. Doll's hip. So it's a smaller dresser, which for what I've got in mind, I think is going to be perfect. First, let's talk about the good parts of this. The size is decent. It's a nice little dresser. It could be a dresser, it could be a little side table in the side of a room. It could be a lot of things. This one, by the way, is not destined for the beachside bungalow. It's just a style I wanted to try out. I got some inspiration online and I thought this would be perfect. So I do like the little knobs, but we're going to take them off and we're going to paint them differently. I like the basic size. What I don't like the top and bottom of the dresser being so oversized to the dresser. To me, they look very out of proportion. Because our dresser here, let's see how wide it is. The dresser is about 3 inches wide, the body of it. But that's almost 3 3/4 inches. So it's 3/4 of an inch wider total. And that translates to 9 inches. That means this is sticking out in scale 4.5 inches on each side if it was a real dresser. That's why it looks so off. And while these feet are kind of cute, they may or may not end up in my final design. I haven't decided. Depends on how well they come off. This one is really crooked, so regardless, it has to come off and be put back on. I'm going to try to reuse the knobs if I can get them off intact. If not, I've got another option. So I'm going to turn on, I've got a few tools here. Let me show you what I've got. I've got a table knife. I have a pair of needle-nose pliers, or jeweler's needle-nose pliers, and I have my heat tool. So let's see how well this comes apart. I won't make you sit through all of it, but I'll get it started. We'll see how it's going to go, and then I'll turn the camera off and get to work. Let's start with the knob. So what I like to do to get these off, aim the heat gun at it. Going to come off? It's not going to want to come off, is it? Come on. Oh yeah. Is it? There we go. Well, I might be able to salvage that. We'll see. I may have to make something else. So let's see if the top is going to come off nicely. Now I can see where this is going to take me a while. Also, like with a lot of these dressers, this top is on really crooked. So I'm just going to turn the camera off. I'm going to get this taken apart, and then I'll be back and tell you how it went. All right, I was successful. I went back and forth between the heat tool and my knife, and I was able to kind of cut a bit and then heat and wiggle it around, got this knife in the action. By using all of those together, I was able to get the top and bottom off of this fairly well. So I don't think I'm going to take the front off this time. We are going to be painting that a separate color. So I do want to get all this glue and all the unevenness sanded off of here. So that's going to be my next step. There's quite a bit to sand off here. So I think rather than having you, again, listen to me sand, I'm going to turn the camera off. I'm going to get some more aggressive sandpaper than the piece that was on my table. And when this is all cleaned up, I'll be back. So off camera, I cut 2 pieces from one of these. This is one of those jumbo or giant craft sticks that I got at Walmart. I cut 2 pieces that are just barely longer than basically they're the same length as this is wide. And one of them I cut down to be the same dimension the other way as this dresser. I'm going to put that one that I cut down the width of it, I'm going to put it here because I want the front and the back to be fairly even with the body of the dresser when I'm done. So I'm going to put on some glue, and I have sanded off all the glue that was remaining and any of the wood that was remaining from the original build that they did at Dollar Tree in their factory. And so this will hopefully, both pieces will glue on nice and level. And I'm actually only going to glue one of these at a time, and then I'm going to let this glue dry because I don't want to accidentally jiggle this around. So now we're going to put this on, and we're going to make sure that's the right spot, and I'm going to let that glue dry, and when that's dry I'll come back and we'll do the top. Alright, so that glue holding the bottom on, while it's not dry by any means, it is set enough I'm not concerned that I'm going to knock it off when I am working on this side. So now I'm going to do basically the same thing, except we need to line it up a little differently. Now on the ones, I looked online at pictures of mid-century dressers, and there were some variations in how they looked, and I kind of took the parts I liked the best from several. So this is not by any means a copy of any specific dresser that ever really existed. And I'm going to apologize if there's any loud noise. The Blue Angels are in town and they're practicing by flying over my apartment today. It's very loud. Alright, so I'm lining this up on the back and centering the sides so that there. I want to wipe any extra glue, and now this needs to dry because our next step will be to add the feet to the bottom. So I'm going to let this dry, this glue dry all the way before we go on to our next step. Alright, so this glue is all dry, so now I'm going to create some legs for the dresser. And I like the height of these, I don't think I like the style of them. They aren't quite going to go with what I want to do. So after trying several different things, I decided to go with a wooden skewer. This is just a bamboo skewer from the kitchen. I was hoping I had a dowel, but I didn't have one this diameter, and I'm not sure how wide this is. I will try and put the diameter of how wide these are in the blog post. I'll find it someplace. So I've already marked off the mark for the first one, and what I did was I just measured this leg, this little foot, and I'm using a pair of claw trimmers. These are like you buy in the pet department, trim your cat or your dog's claws with. And they work really nice for round pieces because unlike my Easy Cutter, they don't make it, they don't put a crease in the middle, they keep it round. So I'm going to cut 4 of these, 3 more, and then I'll be right back. Alright, so I got 4 legs cut. If you don't have a pair of these, then try and use like a miter saw or something like that. You want to keep it round, but don't use scissors. I see people on YouTube using scissors, and that's one of my pet peeves because it's so dangerous to cut things like these skewers with scissors. That can result in a very bad injury, and I don't want any of you guys to get hurt. So I put some tacky glue here on the side of my tile. And I'm going to dip this into it, and I'm just going to put these as close to the 4 corners as I can. And I think well, maybe I can do these online. I will double check that they are straight. And make sure you're on the bottom, because remember our top is just a little bit bigger than our bottom. It sits out on the top, on the front at the top. So you don't want to accidentally put these on the top. You want it on the bottom. I thought about several different legs. I really wanted to make them more angled. That one's not going to stay straight. The more angled ones that go out that were really cute, but I just couldn't get them to look the way I wanted, so I decided to go with this. when this glue is set up, I am going to feed a little more glue around it just to help keep it straight. So I'm going to turn the camera off, make sure those are all going straight up and down, and then when this glue is dry, I'll be back and we'll go to the next step. All right, the legs aren't perfectly straight, but I'm gonna go with it. I've actually straightened them. And what I did off camera was I was using glue for some other projects, so I came over and I just used a toothpick and I just kind of glued around those joints multiple times yesterday afternoon so that it kind of reinforced that connection there. Now, the first coat of paint is going to be kind of ugly. We're going to coat it. I've got Apple Barrel Golden Sunset. What I want is kind of a yellow ochre color. This isn't going to be our final color by any means. This is just we're kind of priming it with this kind of gross yellow, baby poop yellow color. But I want this to kind of tone my top color. So I am going to paint the entire outer surface, front, back, top, bottom, legs, all the parts here. And when this is painted, I'm not going to get paint in these little holes, so I am going to reuse the pulls that came off the drawers, and I'll talk about that when we get ready to finish those. But so I'm going to leave those holes unpainted so that they'll still fit. So I am going to paint this off camera when it's dry, and just one coat. Straighten my legs up here. And when the one coat is dry, I'll be back and we'll hopefully make some magic happen. All right, so my base coat, basically we primed this with that kind of yellow ochre color. That's all dry now. So now it's time to put our final coat of paint on. And so I spent my time while that was drying kind of working out what colors I wanted to use. I only had 3 brown paints in my current paint collection. And that's these 3, and I didn't like any of the 3. They weren't what I was looking for. I took the one that was closest and I tried a couple of things, and I've come up with this combination, which gives me the look I want. It will look like a stained wood piece from the mid-century, from the 1950s, but without staining it by using a paint. I don't want to stain this piece for a couple of reasons. Number one, I don't know what these woods are. They may or may not all stain the same. Secondly, if there's any glue splotches, whether from the original manufacturer, like around these knobs or around the edges, or from me gluing the piece back together, those spots won't take a stain. But paint will cover up and blend this all together so it will look like the way I want it to look. So what colors are we using? We're going to combine 2 colors. We're going to combine Liquitex Basics acrylic paint in raw umber and Anita's craft paint in pumpkin. So those are the 2 colors that I came up with. And if you guys want to see how I went about this process, what my thinking process was, let me know in the comments or over on the Facebook, and I will put together a quick little video, Tuesday video, for how I go about doing that. But for now, we know what we're doing. And the only tricky part about this is I need to make sure I mix enough paint together on my tray to cover the entire piece, because it's going to be pretty much impossible to replicate this again. So that's our raw umber. And that Liquitex Basics is a very thick, full-bodied acrylic artist paint. It works very, very differently from our craft paints. Now this orange will not only tone it the way I want it to be toned, but it will also thin it out a little bit. I may have got a little more orange in there than I wanted. I think I did. I need something different to mix that with. Let's get one of these. That toothpick is not going to cut it. Okay, that's still way too brown. So let me squeeze a little more of this in. I'd rather waste a little paint than not have enough. There we And now I've got paint all over my fingers. And it doesn't have to be perfectly mixed. It is a rather disgusting looking color this way though. All right, now I'm going to start on the back, mainly so I can see if it's going to be the color I want. And I forgot to bring my paper towel. I'll be right back. I knew I was going to forget something. And I don't want to wipe it all the way out, but I want to kind of even it out. And that's kind of the look I'm going for. It maybe could have used a little bit of water also. When you're wiping, be sure that you wipe the direction that the wood grain would have been going on the piece of furniture. And that means on the real piece of furniture, not necessarily the way the wood grain is going on this Dollar Tree piece, because it may or may not be running the right direction in some places. All right, I'll do the front, and then I'm going to turn the camera off and do the rest off camera because we all know how to paint. I'm going to try to, once again, avoid the holes that the knobs are going to go into because I don't want to fill those in. I don't want to make that space too tight. All right, I'm going to turn the camera off and I'm going to continue applying this. When I get all the paint on, I will come back and show you how it looks with just the paint on before it dries. All right, and here's what it looks like all painted and ready to go. I love how that turned out. It gives the look I was looking for. So I'm going to move this all out of the way and we are going to paint those drawer pulls. All right, so here are 8 of those. There, move back so you can see them better. 8 of the little knobs that come off of these pieces of furniture. I had 7 of them off of this dresser, and then I pulled out one. I have my little baggie where I put all the extra pieces from the other projects we've done, and I'll be adding the ones from this. So I just had to pull out one of the extra knobs from one of those sets. So what I've done, I've got a piece of masking tape. This is sticky side up. Tape down on my work tray, and I'm going to squirt out just some ceramic coat gold craft paint. And I think I'm going to do this without undercoating it. I don't think I'll need to undercoat it. Now you don't have to use the knobs. You've seen me use other things for knobs on these pieces already in other projects we've done. But I thought it would be fun to use these. They'll be fine. Because you've seen me create different pulls for for both the desk that we turned into a hall table and for the tall dresser that we did in the blue. We did different pulls on those. So I'm just going to put a nice coat of gold paint on each of these. And when this is dry, then we can assemble our dresser and meaning put these knobs onto our dresser. And then we'll coat the whole thing with some satin Mod Podge. So I'll be back when these are all painted and dry. All right, so the paint is dry on both the dresser and the little knobs. So I've got glue over on my tile over here out of camera, and just dip the little knobs in and set them into those little holes. And I'm going to do that with all 8 of these. When this glue is all dry, I'll come back and we will put the clear coat on. All right, our glue is dry enough that I'm going to put the clear coat on. I'm using Mod Podge satin finish. I love this for doing doll furniture. It gives a good coat. It's easy to get. It's not all that expensive. It goes a long ways, and it just makes a nice coat on the furniture. It gives it a slight sheen. Now you'll notice I poured it into a small container. When I'm painting Mod Podge onto something that I've previously painted, like this dresser, I don't like to work directly out of my container, because if I was to get if there's maybe a little corner that has a damp bit of paint, and I picked up brown paint or orange paint on my brush and transferred it to my big jar, I would have to throw out the whole thing. It would be contaminated. It would be orange or brown or whatever. I pour out a little bit. I may end up with some extra that I end up wasting, but I'd rather waste this little bit than waste an entire jar of it. And that's happened to me before when I wasn't being so careful. It's like, oh, I know it's dry, I can just paint. I'll just paint straight out of the jar. And a couple of times it's managed to mess me up. I've ended up having to dump a almost new container of Mod Podge. And while it's not a really expensive product, if you're not getting any uses out of it, that gets expensive. So I am going to very carefully hold on to the the top. And I'm not going to bother Mod Podging the back or the bottom. That leg is crooked that direction a little bit. I didn't get my legs on perfectly straight, but they're good enough. And this does go on white, but it will dry clear, and it doesn't take all that long to dry, and it is a soap and water cleanup. So, okay, well, that is all there is to finishing this. I will be back when this finish dries. All right, the finish is completely dry now. I love how this came out. These little dressers are so versatile. So if your Dollar Tree has them, and pick some up and just have fun playing with them. You can do so many things. I think I'm going to get some more so we can do a few more of these flips on the channel. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please push the like button. Leave me a comment. If you haven't subscribed, I'd love to have you push that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you know when I put up a new video. And I'll talk to you later. Bye.